Hello and welcome to NFTs Live. I'm your host, Tyler D, and I'm joined today by SkyHook for a very special episode. Sky, how you doing? Are you ready for this one?
Yeah, happy holidays, Tyler. Fun doing this show with you. This is kind of maybe one of our lead up ideas that we've been building since we launched NFTs Live. This is, a vision that you've created and something you've been passionate about all summer is, talking with and cultivating into the art world and really getting to know a lot of these artists. So it's a special treat we have in store for our audience and ourselves. I'm giddy here.
Me too. It's really exciting to see this come to fruition. So for our listeners and viewers, we are very excited to do our first interview with a top artist in the NFT and crypto art space, Alpha Centauri Kid. For some background on Alpha Centauri Kid, or ACK, as I'll refer to him for the rest of the interview, he is absolutely one of the top rising stars in the digital art, NFT, crypto art space. He describes himself as a conceptual artist using the format that makes the most sense to tell his stories. Though he's been making digital art for years, he made his first big splash on the NFT scene earlier this year, joining the Foundation platform in March, where he published his first pieces. He has been fairly prolific in his creations since his debut, including 19 creations on Foundation and dozens on OpenSea, including his famous trilogy of editions pieces, as well as several one-of-ones that have attracted the attention of the absolute top collectors in the NFT space. He then went on to set the Genesis sale record on SuperRare this year, selling his piece Control Alt Generate for 165 Ethereum, which was $587,000 or so, a record for new artist sales on the SuperRare platform. He is well known for his meme-based artistic style and rapid turnaround times, and of course, his infamous muse. In fact, his Twitter bio says, "Letting the whispers of the muse guide my way." We can't wait to hear his story and learn more about his journey. ACK, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm super happy to be here, and I appreciate, the whole team, and I'm very thrilled. Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's awesome to have you on. So let's get started. To frame up the interview a bit, we want to take a look at your body of work this year and highlight some iconic pieces. We'll do some screen sharing. We then want to talk about relationships with some other artists and collectors, as well as your thoughts on the future, both for the space as well as yourself. But we have to start with your background. We want to hear your story. So we'd love just to hear from you for a bit and just talk about how you got started in digital art, conceptual art, and then we can take it from there.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I appreciate the introduction. And yeah, so I guess I've been making art like my whole life, essentially, since I was a kid. And I'm self-taught pianist, and I, classically trained, but by myself. And so I kind of always had both. But they would be separate. So I'd be making music, or I'd be doing art. And then in March, when I realized like, oh wow, I can do both like together, it kind of, a light bulb went off, like, okay, this is for me. I need to dive in. And I saw Beeple's art and I saw Xcopy's art. They were the first two people that kind of introed me to the space with their art. So I kind of dove in and yeah, I worked. Now that the cat's out of the bag, I worked for the government for 15 years for Homeland Security. And me, I'm in my office every day for 8, 9, 10 hours, but I'm usually just doing art and making memes and whatever for the past 15 years, just for fun. And so, yeah, it kind of paid off for me. But yeah, so earlier in March, I put my first piece up. It was on OpenSea. It's an old wallet that I don't use anymore, but like a few weeks later, I got a sell. It was like, I think for 0.01, it was like $30 or something. And I was like, wow, okay, this is someone spent $30 on my art. It might've been 0.1, which was like, I don't know, $100. I can't remember, but I was shocked. I was like, oh, this is crazy. So then, I just kept making, some more pieces. And by April, I got I got a piece sold to Barat Primo or Primo. Yeah, he was the first big collector to buy my work, and then G Money came in after that, and he bought a piece from me on Foundation. But I'm kind of skipping. So like my very first piece on Foundation was bought by a famous soccer player, and Kinsey. He's on. I'll have to share his Twitter, but or we'll probably see it when we show the piece. But yeah. So yeah, background. I work for the government, making art just for fun, and making music just for fun. And when I realized what NFTs were, I brought them together and started my journey.
So I want to get into that a little bit more. So when you talk about the light bulb went off in your head that you could combine music with your art, do you feel like that's one of your defining styles? Do you have music as a component of most of your pieces? Do you start with the music component in mind, or kind of what's your framework for combining those two?
So yeah, like I want to, like for me as a musician and an artist, I like to tell the full story, because I feel like if I use, like, one of my golden rules is to not let anyone else do music for me or to like score a scene for me, because I want to give the collector the full experience the full vision for me. So yeah, so like if I have a piece, like right click print, for instance, I made the scene and then I sat there with it for a few days, and then I was playing piano, and then finally the right melody came to me, and yeah, I just went with it. Usually I just wait for a feeling to dictate how it's going to go, but yeah, for the most part I'll build the scene and then I'll score the music after.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. The other piece I wanted to hit on a bit is some of your inspirations. So you mentioned Beeple and Xcopy. I guess tell us a little bit more about how you drew inspiration from them. Was it any contact or dialogue, or was it more just from afar and looking at the art that they created and their success? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I saw Beeple's big sell in March, and I instantly loved his meme art, like the Buzz Lightyear and all that stuff, and I just really liked it. And then as I looked into the space more, I became aware of Xcopy. And I don't know if it's noticeable, but I kind of try to draw from. I don't try to draw from them too, but they're both two of my inspirations. So it's probably a little bit obvious that I like to mix 3D with glitch art. So yeah, I never spoke to them before my collab with Xcopy in July, but yeah, I would just kind of sit back and just look at the space and and just see what felt right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, from being an outsider looking into the community, seeing both of these guys' success early on and what they're doing, what was the first step for you into getting into the NFTs, actually, just actually taking the leap? You sold your first one in March, you said, but how was, uploading and getting into this side of it for the first time?
Good question. Yeah. So I'm really good at figuring things out. So I had some Dogecoin, and I had a little bit of Ethereum just from the market, because I listened to a few friends of mine who are investors in crypto. So I had a Coinbase wallet, and that's what I used to make my first NFT on OpenSea. So yeah, I connected my wallet, and I had a piece that I had made. It was a Photoshop of PewDiePie, the YouTuber, and he's centered in this it's like a famous painting of, I think, Louis XIV, and it's a painting of a painting where Louis XIV is in the center, and there's all these other characters around the scene. So I just photoshopped all the other big YouTubers in it. It seems like they're all upset with PewDiePie, and I just did it for fun, and I listed it, and yeah, it sold within a couple of weeks, and I was just in shock. Like, there's no way someone wants to pay $100 for this. So but it was a good experience, like getting in, and it was relatively easy for me.
The first step's always so important. So playing that back, Dogecoin is one of the first dominoes that led to the prolific creations of the ACK artists this year.
Yeah. I mean, a meme coin led to a meme artist essentially.
It's a great story.
For sure.
I have to hear, what is that feeling like? When you've sold your first piece and you get that, your item sold email. I feel like it has to be some ecstasy in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in shock. I remember I was in the living room with my kids and my wife was in the kitchen. I got the notification and I'm like, oh shit. She's like, what? I'm like, someone just spent $100 on my art. And she kind of just rolled her eyes and walked away. And now, now I'm full time and she's fully supportive, and she's always been supportive, but she thought of us, it's just another thing he's going to do because I've always just done stuff. So, yeah.
Well, you mentioned that, and, balancing this career creating art with your full-time government job. I mean, it feels like it had to have been a lot to balance and to keep on top of. So maybe tell us a little bit how that's been, starting in March and then April when your pieces started selling, and then still kind of going to, a day job every day. What was that experience like?
I was getting minimal sleep, like, cause I didn't really want to work on it. I mean, I would work on it at work, to be totally honest. I would spend at least 4 or 5 hours. If I had a piece I'm working on, let me think, like Lonely Neighborhood Spider Pepe, I made all at work on my laptop. And yeah, because I'm trying to, to fill in the time, because I don't like taking away from my kids and my family. So yeah, I would usually work on that there, and I would get home and I would spend time with family, and then I would stay up super late till 1 or 2 every night, just working on art with no promise of like anything. Like I didn't ever expect to be in the position I'm at now. I just did it because the vision was there and I wanted to fulfill it and make the art. But yeah, it was pretty grueling for a while, but I enjoyed it. I mean, seeing the pieces come to fruition was, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely has to make it a bit easier. I think it's a sentiment that several of us who have kind of left our corporate jobs this year can share. Certainly I was in a similar boat, mainly just from trading NFTs and whatnot, but was doing it, multitasking at work, was doing it at night after the kids went to bed, and it got really tiring, and I was getting, certainly close to burning out. Were you experiencing any feelings of burnout there? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's what led me to depart the workforce, because I told my wife, I just can't do both anymore. Like, and I don't want to miss opportunities here in this space, because I'm in the tungsten DAO now, and like we're pretty meme efficient. So like if something comes up, I want to be able to participate and do my part. So
yeah, I mean, we've seen your rapid turnaround times, but it's important in this space. I mean, this space moves at the speed of lightning, and a meme might be relevant for 24 hours before the next one. So
definitely.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. I feel like we've gotten a good sense now for your background, and we've started alluding to some of your more iconic pieces for this year. But why don't we go into a little bit more detail, especially for our listeners and viewers who may not be as familiar with your work. So I'm going to start. I'm going to pull up your foundation page to start here, and we'll send out all the links in our show notes for everyone. What I like about Foundation is it lists all of the pieces automatically in chronological order. So the pieces we're seeing up top are from later in the summer. I'm going to scroll down because I want to get to some of the earlier pieces here. So as we scroll down, first piece listed here, Mars circa 2069. You mentioned this sold to Quincy, who may be a soccer player. So I think this is a portrait of Elon sitting on Mars, as a king in 2069. Tell us a little bit about this piece.
Yeah, so obviously being Dogecoin, early, and I'm a big fan of Elon, and I had the idea for the piece as him as like the Emperor of Mars. And yeah, so I kind of started with Photoshops with him, and I sat there with it, and I thought, it'd be cool to have some rockets in the background, and I just started working the piece. And of course, I incorporated a Doge eagle next to Elon, and yeah, for this one I already had the music, so but it just worked so well for me, and yeah, and then the very final touch was I put Beeple in the on the shield on the bottom where Elon's stepping on, and I just thought it was a fun piece, and this one was cool because I had no idea. I never had interacted with Quincy before, and I got the notification that your art has been auctioned, and I was like, and it was 0.6, I think.
Yeah.
At the time, yeah, 0.6, and yeah, so I freaked out and I couldn't believe it.
Do you know how he found it? Like, have you had that conversation? How he came across?
Oh, hey, I'm sorry, the sound cut off. Oh, there we go.
Perfect. Do you know how Quincy came across it?
I think it might have been Instagram. I was sharing stuff on Instagram back then a little bit, and don't ask me why, but I just hashtagged it, NFTs, this or that, and I think it could have also just been Foundation was good back then about just listing new artists. So like maybe it just popped up on his feed, or I'm not quite sure.
I want to touch on that just quickly. You kind of mentioned your regrets or whatnot. Are you still publishing pieces to Instagram, or are you primarily Twitter now?
Yeah, no, I don't really. I'll post a meme or two on Instagram here and there, but I really could care less about it.
Similar. I started my first real NFT content feed was on Instagram, and I quickly saw the reactions or lack of reactions and engagement I was getting, so quickly moved on. Exactly. It's funny you mentioned kind of stepping on people's face. I missed that when I was looking at this piece, so I saw something new. And then so kind of talk to us about what happened from there. So did you have other pieces already in the works, or you sold this piece like, hey, I'm going to start making some more? Like, how did you get to Stardad and Elon Destroys People and this next wave?
Yeah, so Quincy actually bought two. He bought that one, and then he bought my very next piece called Stardad, and that one we had kind of talked, like after he bought my first one, I found who he was, and I DM'd him like, hey, thanks so much, and we got to talking a bit, and he said he wanted another piece for me, so I kind of just made this one for him, just like as a gesture. I mean, I guess a commission, you could say. And yeah, so he bought that, and then my very next piece was Elon Destroys People, but that didn't sell until after I had already done the Xcopy collab. So that one's set. But then the one after that is my Punk Party, the G Money piece, and I had never interacted with G Money before that, but I listed it and I tagged him on Twitter, and yeah, and he bought it. And then after, I didn't know he bought it until after I tweeted like, oh damn, someone bought my Punk Party piece, and he said, hey, it was me. And we kind of started a relationship there, and he started supporting me. He bought a few pieces from me, and yeah, so I mean, nothing really major happened from there. I just, I was selling for really cheap, like 0.5 or 0.1 or 0.2, and just continuing to build and just try to create cool stuff.
I want to quickly touch on the relationship piece because it's so reflective of this new Web3 paradigm that we're in, where kind of the boundaries have kind of fallen between artists and collectors. So, you sell your first piece to Quincy, and then one of your very first thoughts is to DM him to start a conversation. And I feel like that's just it feels so new to me. Again, I don't have a huge background in traditional art, but I feel like the conversations that artists are having with collectors and forward outreach is such a hallmark of this space. And to me, it builds bonds, and
for sure,
it makes me like artists more, the ones that I have chances to relate to and conversate with. So it's really cool to see that. Do you reach out and have conversations with a lot of your buyers, or is it more kind of in your early stages, or?
No, yeah, yeah. Especially now, like I'm pretty like I have, you know, like I often converse with my collectors and my investors now. Like back then I tried to be more reserved. Like if someone bought like, you know, it was my first piece, so I was just overly excited. But like I tried not to bother G Money because I mean, yeah, yeah, like he bought my piece, but he was G Money and he's still G Money. You know what I mean? So like I didn't want to be bugging him. But yeah, we would chit chat, and I had a print made for him, and I sent it to him. Like those were the kind of conversations I was having with him. But now, you know, me and G Money are cool. I could hit him up whenever. Um, but yeah, during that phase, I didn't really. I tried to just be respectful and not overstep, you know, the DM boundaries. But yeah, now it's more relaxed for sure.
Did you
And
have an idea the pedigree of these early collectors for you? I mean, you think about, you know, Barat and G Money, and then what is now, you know, 6529 and
Yeah,
Anonymous, you know, so many of these people that, you know, Tyler and I and many just respect as the pinnacle of collectors out there. Did you have an idea of that being your early investors?
um, at the time, I knew G Money was like I knew he was an important figure in the space, but I didn't understand the scope of it. I don't think like I didn't understand how important it was that, you know, he collected from me at the time, and Barat as well. Because look, you know, Barat's one of the men. Like he has an, you know, amazing collector, the foresight to collect early too.
Yeah, I'd love to maybe understand from their side of things, you know,
Yeah,
what are they looking in these early investments, you know, that they spot people, you know, very successful artists very early on, and, you know, sticking with that of course has been financially rewarding, but also I think a bond from your side of things that gets you both to a
definitely.
higher level. It's very interesting.
Yeah, because I'm thinking back. I don't know, like, would I have bought this if someone DM? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, probably. I hope. So
I mean, it was great marketing. His pictures front and center, and then just quick context for our audience who may not know G Money. He's absolutely one of the OGs in the NFT space. Has hundreds of squiggles, huge, beautiful punk collection, and he also just famously is a big partner in that Adidas deal that went
mm,
nuclear and made some really big headlines here this year. Um, so definitely a top collector, and one that it's great to see their name as an owner in your
definitely.
portfolio as you scroll through this. I want to go and highlight a few other pieces. So one I want to touch on, this might be a little more selfish, 8146 Punk Lane. So we're going to show this piece here in its page. So you start with zooming in on a beanie CryptoPunk. Then you've got
Mm,
the cartoon character strolling through. He's now in a museum. We see some of the classic party meme where it's, you know, the bubbles over the person's head. You know, they don't know that
yeah.
I'm XXX, right?
Right.
So, you know, you've got CryptoPunks in the piece, you've got the animation, you've got three scenes, and it it's like it's telling a story. So, are you able to maybe kind of talk to us a little bit about what that story is, or what you were, you know, hoping to you know, share or communicate with these
Yeah.
people?
Yeah. So so this was my very second piece in Cinema 4D. So like my first several pieces were just Photoshop, but then I thought, you know, this is kind of limiting for me. I want to be able to tell more stories. So yeah, I downloaded Cinema 4D, and yeah, and this was my very second piece. So I started with the Beanie Punk because we all know Beanie was, you know, he's
Mm-hmm.
still is just a, you know, important figure as well. So, and I thought it would be cool to have his punk as a building and like a hotel in this punk city or whatever it is. And I just kind of wanted to tell a story of what could be going on inside the hotel essentially. And I used my infamous cat character and Morty, and just kind of just went with it. And I even, yeah, you can see I put the G Money piece on a big frame in there, and yeah, just kind of just have fun with it. And that one didn't sell for the longest time. Actually, I ended up gifting. Me and Beanie did like a raffle essentially, and I ended
Oh
up gifting
wow.
it to someone in the Punks Discord early on, back before the Punks comics, like way early.
I was going to ask, so you can see the listing price history, starting listing at 3 ETH goes down to 1. For a little bit, it's 0.5, and then it's completely unlisted until it's transferred to Laser Viking. You know, almost a month after it was minted originally on here. So that's really unique to see how that ended up coming up. And of course, you know, now, you know, priced at 140 for a reserve. You know, it's just it's a crazy story behind that one.
For sure. Yeah.
I think it shows that, you know, success didn't come overnight, right?
No,
so like you created this piece, and then it kind of sat there, and ultimately you gave it away. What my side of the story for this piece is, you know, I got to know about you through some of your OpenSea pieces, specifically some of the additions, and then from there went backwards and started looking at your one-of-ones. This is the first one-of-one of yours that I found. Actually, when it was still listed at 35 ETH in mid-August. This is when the NFT markets were going crazy. I was quite a bit more liquid at the time, and I was actually making plans to potentially purchase this one because I love this piece. I love the story it tells and the tie-in to CryptoPunks. I knew it would be important. And then, as you can see, listed for 35, 3 days later unlisted, and then relisted for 200 ETH. So we'll see, you know, if he continues to come down a bit. But
he might. I wonder what happened from the 11th. Maybe I had a huge sell. I don't know. I'll have to go check.
Yeah, but man, it was a good pull by him, because certainly this piece would have sold at that price. So then let's talk about your journey continuing. So, you know, you continue making pieces, you build out your portfolio on a foundation. You're selling, but you know that they're selling likely on the lower end. Then in August, you met Lonely Neighborhood Spider Pepe, and we're going to show the piece here. And then this gets bought by Vincent Van Doe for, what is this, 46?
So this was my first one-of-one after the Xcopy collab. So obviously there was a bit more notoriety there, but and a bit more buzz. But so actually Ice Bags, Milkman, and D's, they won the piece, but Vince ended up hitting them up after, like, hey man, I really want the piece. How can we work this out? So Vince ended up buying it for like the 10% higher, like one more bid higher from them. And because I didn't know Vince actually had won that pegs. I just wanted to make a piece surrounding the pegs, because the day before was the big peg sell. So that was kind of the motivation for this space. Plus I just thought it would be funny to see a stalker or Spider-Man texting Mary Jane like nonstop. So Vince did walk away with it, but those guys were in a bidding war, and it was cool. It was my first bidding war. And we were up till like 2 a.m. that night. And
I remember your tweets. I remember them well. Kind of, that was when I first, as well as Tyler, you know, really came aware of what you were doing. And that night, just lighting it on fire. You know, that was kind of my introduction.
I'll never forget that night for sure.
And also to help set the stage for folks, so Vincent Van Doe, now, you know, one of the most famous NFT collectors. He started Starry Night Fund, the first large NFT investment fund, Starry Night Cap. But mid-August, this is really when he had just come onto the scene, and he was making huge splashes with, you know, really high purchases and sales, and then everyone started following him. So I think this purchase and then him acquiring this piece certainly was a headline event for
sure.
You. And then just 2 weeks later, you came out with this next piece, Draw Me Like One of Your French Girls, minted on August 23rd. And then this might be an anonymous winner.
It went to 3AC.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, to follow up, I made this one, and then I listed it at 4 with the 4 ETH reserve. I had no idea what to expect. And then of course the meme bids start kicking in, and I was just in shock that, you know, it was going up this high. And and it sold for 60, which was my highest. I mean, from 46 to 60. And I was just in shock. Like, I couldn't believe it. But Yeah, I love this piece. I mean, I sat there with it for a while. I had the idea for quite some time, and I just started building. I started with the couch and with her, and then just started building the room. And yeah, I scored the music the very last thing, and I'm really attached to this piece. It's one of my favorites.
And then this, the water aspect, or what appears to be a flooded room of some kind.
Yeah.
This appears to be kind of one of your hallmarks, and we'll see it as well in the additions we're about to go through.
Sure.
Is there any theme there that you can speak to, or kind of why you decided to use that as a recurring theme, or is it a mystery?
I mean, what I will say is, like, the term flooded is like, it can be used for like emotions. Like if you're flooded with emotions, that's kind of where I draw the inspiration from it. So yeah, I try to incorporate it in ways. I mean, plus aesthetically, I love it. Like flooding a room is just something that aesthetically pleasing to me, and finding a cool way to do it. So yeah, that's kind of what I'll speak to on that.
I feel like the animated flooding too, it really is aesthetic, and it's peaceful and it's calming in a lot of ways. I feel like it would be harder to pull off in a still piece.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, definitely.
So that's the last piece you had published on Foundation. It kind of feels like there was a shift where you started spending a little bit more time creating pieces for OpenSea. And I want to highlight your hallmark trilogy of editions. So we've alluded to this piece a few times already in the conversation, but showing right now Last Orders. This is an edition of 27. This is the first in the trilogy, and this is your collaboration with Xcopy.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to hear a little bit more about this piece, and really how you even approached Xcopy for the collab.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll never forget this moment for, the rest of my life. But yeah, so I had just come off the sell of my piece on Foundation called Declaration of Independent Contracts. And if you go through my Foundation, you'll see it. But it's a piece surrounding Richard. And, back then Manifold was all the hype, just as it is now. And everybody wanted a Manifold contract. All the top artists had like Fuck Render had one. Let me think who else. Several big artists had one, and of course I wanted one. So did some of my friends, and it was Independence Day, and I was at the store, and I thought, let me do a piece called Declaration of Independent Contracts. So I went home, made the piece, and I listed it, and it's kind of a controversy because I listed it. And then Richard DM'd me like, hey, my co-founder wants to buy the piece. I think he's going to bid on it, but you think you could change that zombie that you put in there twice? I was like, I didn't put a zombie in there twice. And he's like, yeah, you did. So I went back and looked. I'm like, oh, shit. Well, okay. So I called my brother, hey, man, bring me my laptop. I need to fix this piece. So he rushed my laptop to me. I'm out watching fireworks with my kids.
This is wild.
And by the time I got my laptop, another collector of mine he kicked off the auction. So that the piece was so it got frozen on the blockchain. So now that's it. So I was like, oh damn, Richard's not going to bid on it now. I just ruined my career. But I'm friends with Alex Gausman, the creator of NFTs, and he owned that zombie that I put in there twice. So I DM'd him like, hey man, I accidentally put your Top Hat zombie in here twice. And I was telling him like, dude, I don't think Richard's going to bid on it now. And he's like, dude, fuck that. I'm going to bid on it. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So he went and bid on it because he liked the fact that the zombie was in there twice. And then like, as the bidding was going on, his Top Hat zombie sold for the record-breaking zombie sell, like, of all time.
Wow.
So then he started fighting for the piece because it was more like sentimental for him. So he got into a little bidding war with Richard and the co-founder of Manifold, Eric. Eric, the co-founder, ended up taking the piece, but yeah. So I had that historic sell for me, which sold for 2.1, which is my biggest sell at the time. Prior to that, I was selling for like 0.5 or 0.1. And I would hang out in Xcopy's Discord all the time, which was called Bar, and which I'm sure you're aware of. And
yes.
So I was a frequent member of the bar, and I had just had the big sell, and I told Xcopy, hey man, I just had my biggest sell. I have this idea for a piece called Xcopy. I mean, for a bar scene called Xcopies. And I was like, do you mind if I use Xcopy as the name of the bar? And he's like, hell yeah, man, go for it. So I'm like, you know what? Let me DM this guy and see if he'll make a piece for the screen for me. Because obviously he's like, I'm like his biggest fan. Like he's my favorite artist of all time. So so I DM'd him this long paragraph. I shot my shot like, hey man, look, I'm gonna make a 3D bar scene. And I would be absolutely like thrilled if you made just like something static, anything, a glitch piece. I don't care if it's 2 dots, whatever, just anything I can use for the TV screen. Like, it would mean the world to me. And I pitched, this long pitch, and then in Discord, you can see like if they're typing or not. So I'm watching that little bubble. I'm staring at it like, oh, he's gonna say no, like fuck off, whatever. And and yeah, and then as soon as I saw his reply, he said, yeah, man, let's do it. I'll make the screens, just make the bar, and let's do this. So I'm like, so I rushed home from work, started building the scene, and and I thought, you know what? Obviously his piece, right click save as guy, like I love that piece. So I thought, let me make him in 3D. So I started working that, and then I sent him the first rough draft, and he was like, oh man, I love it. He's like, I love right click. You did so good with him. And yeah, and we just started a relationship, and he's the coolest guy in the world. Like, he has the most knowledge. It's just weird. Like, he can suggest a couple simple things and it just completely changes the whole scene. And we worked on it together for about a good 7-8 days, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, long story.
No, it's a great story. I mean, Xcopy, on a pedestal, one of the top crypto artists ever.
For sure. Yeah.
A leading visionary. It's also like how thematic of again this new NFT paradigm that you just reach out on Discord in his public Discord group, and you build this relationship, and then you guys work together on this piece. It's really cool. I am curious. Like, have you kept up a relationship with Xcopy? Do you guys talk much? Since this collab.
Yeah, we'll DM, like, not every day or anything, but like every couple weeks I'll hit him up, or just chit chat here and there. How's the fam? Stuff like that.
No, go ahead.
I get his, like, if I'm really struggling with an idea, I'll hit him up and ask his advice, and he's always very cool about it. But what were you saying?
No, I was just wrapping my head around the foresight from both sides. Being from you asking the question, sitting there with the anxiety, waiting for it. But again, the impact we mentioned that collectors can have earlier, but that a top tier artist can change the momentum of what we know comes over the next few months. And it's either A, are there people who aren't vulnerable enough to ask those questions to top tier artists because maybe they're looking for it, or B, if those questions are flooding in, how do they allow it for it? I listened to one of your past interviews, and I know it's something you want to do down the line when you have the time of being able to collab with some of artists that are on the rise, and the ability to add that inside your portfolio and your future. Just such foresight by both sides of you guys, asking those questions and the risks taken.
Yeah, so I know with him, he said he liked the randomness of it. And he asked to see my work before he agreed. Like, he said, hey, but when I told him about my big sale, he's, oh, cool, can I see it? And so I sent it to him. And then after I sent it to him is when I shot my shot. But he said he liked the randomness of it, like how I kind of just strolled into his bar and asked. And he said he also wanted to support me on my first Manifold piece. So that was part of my pitch. It was like, hey, I just got accepted into Manifold, and there was only like me and 5 other artists at the time. And so he wanted to support that, and perhaps he liked the art as well, and I think that helped his decision making. And yeah, for myself, I'm not really waiting for the same situation. I doubt a similar situation will happen, but I do get asked a lot. Hey, let's DM, and I'm trying to be thoughtful about it, and I want it to be the right time, the right kind of vibe. And I have a few plans to collab with. There's a few artists that I'm kind of talking to for 2022. So, yeah.
It'll be exciting to look out for that. And I also want to come back to that manifold piece as well. I mean, that's going to play a really important part here in some future pieces down the line. But I want to take us back to this trilogy. So we've got right out of the gate coming so strong with this collab with Xcopy. It's a set of 27, then right click print. It's an edition set of 15. So you've now reduced the supply a bit. It's, similar. It's got some of the glitch art in the style of the piece. We also see the flooded room. We've got the piano. Any other, parts of your thought process that went into this piece here is the second step of this trilogy that you can share?
Yeah. So obviously we were super happy with how Last Orders came out, and Xcopy really, like, all the materials you see, like the bar mats, the labels, the arcade textures, like he touched everything. Like I helped, of course. It was like a legit 50-50 collab, which I was really happy with, because you would expect, like, he might be like, here's the screens and here, you figure it out. But no, that he wasn't like that at all. He was like super making sure, like, hey man, let's do this right. So anyway, yeah, so I was at epic piece, and I sat for a while not knowing what to do next, because how do you follow up an Xcopy collab as an artist like myself? Nobody really knew me. 90% of my collectors came after that. Like, they saw the Xcopy drop, and then they wanted to support me as well. So I'm like, damn, all these eyes on me. I gotta outdo myself here. So, and I thought, you know what? I want to tell more of right click story. Like, why is he like this? Like, why does he right click save all our shit? And I thought, let me do a piece where he's right click printing, and let's see what his house would look like. And I just kind of started with him. I like right click print is just an extension of the bar. So like, I built the bar, but I also built the side of, like, I built it into like a house. So if, like, in 3D world, if I just take the bar and I turn it, bam, we have right click print right there. So yeah, I'll have to share that sometime. But yeah, so I just started building it, and I knew I wanted a piece to actually get printed from the printer, and I had a few ideas. And usually with scenes like that, you just start building and they come together. And I was really proud of that one, because it was like my follow-up, like it was like a test for me, like, am I good enough to continue this on my own? And I was really, really happy with the outcome.
And I think the market speaks to that you passed the test. So this edition started, rising in price on the secondary sales. So the primary sales, I don't recall if it was 0.25 or 0.5 or what the price
point was. It was 0.6, no, 0.8.
Okay, got it. Relatively high for what your pieces have been going for, especially as an addition. But then we saw these selling in the low single digits, selling for 5, 6. The floor, I think, got over 20 ETH at one point over the summer. And then it was all leading up to the last piece in the trilogy. It was titled Control Alt Generate, and it became your Genesis piece on SuperRare. So the first piece that you minted to that platform, SuperRare being, I'd say that the primary platform for crypto art where the top artists are minting their pieces. So, this is, a big accomplishment, a big step forward, is going on to this platform. And at this point, you have now caught the attention of some top collectors. Yeah. And the way this played out, we saw a bidding war with some of the absolute top names in the NFT collector, visual art collecting space. We have Zalaxy Vault outbid by Cosimo de Medici, outbid by Starry Night, outbid by Punk 6529, who ended up taking the piece for 165 ETH, which set the record for the primary sale of a new artist on SuperRare. So walk us through, your reactions to, kind of what happened, what was going through your mind.
Sure.
Like, did you expect this?
Oh, no, I didn't expect it. Yeah, I think my highest sell prior to that was, this piece took me 2 months to make, by the way. So I set with it, I worked on it so hard, and I put so much into it. I set the reserve at, Anonymous, the collector Anonymous, friend of mine, and he wanted to do the honors of kicking the auction off for me, which was, I will forever be grateful. And so he kicked it off, and then the bids started coming in, and I knew 6529 wanted it. I didn't know how bad, but I knew he wanted it because he wanted to win the trilogy, and I knew Starry Night wanted it as well. And so I was really shocked that it went up so high, and very thankful. And it means a lot to circle back to SuperRare. I started with Xcopy, and to come back to SuperRare like with his character, like as my debut, it was very impactful for me.
I think this piece will go down and be remembered as iconic and representative of the time. As as we look at the piece, clearly you've incorporated some of the Grail art blocks pieces. We've got the golden goose ringer. We've got a few other ringers. I believe what could be an archetype cube there. Was that your intent to kind of highlight some of the the art blocks mania that we saw, or kind of what was your thought process?
I wanted to show him I wanted to kind of reference he's kind of manufacturing the means of production kind of a thing. He's generating the means of production in a sense. He's in his warehouse, his factory. He's generating art blocks, because I had done he's already right click saved. He's already right click printed, and I wanted to have a good take on art blocks and just show my character in his dark little dungeon and just having fun. But yeah.
So many hidden gems. I think my favorite is going over to the piano, seeing it with the music going, just such attention to detail that you could spend hours looking at this and notice something new, every time.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was the last thing I did. It was important for me to have, I played the piano and the music, the drums, everything. And then I exported the actual MIDI notes and I put them on the screens there, because it's actually playing in real time along with it. So that was important for me to finalize the piece, to have that, tie in together. So.
Amazing.
So you didn't just stop here. It would have been very easy to.
Oh God.
But I want to talk, about some of the innovative styles that you've brought to the space.
Oh, you mean the very next day?
A light switch that night. Yep.
Yeah.
So very soon after, we saw your Scarcity piece, which you sold the piece along with it came with a cold wallet that had essentially a mystery box of additional pieces. I hadn't seen an artist do anything like that yet. And then not immediately after, but a month or two down the line, the iconic piece, Till Death Do Us Part. I want to read the description. This piece of art will be ever changing as long as I'm alive. It will only be truly finished the day that I die. I hope that is hundreds of years from now. As the scene grows, I will update the metadata to the current stage of the build. It will be a remarkable piece of art, to say the least.
And if I have it correct with the timeline of it, so the Till Death Do Us Apart was immediately after the idea, at least sprung to you right immediately after your SuperRare record.
Yeah. So timeline wise, Scarcity came out before my before Control Alt Generate.
Okay.
So that happened. Okay. Yeah, that happened in the in between. It was one of those where I had an idea while I was still working on Control Alt, but I had this idea to make a piece, and then within the piece, if you win the piece, you win the cold wallet. You win the seed phrase of the cold wallet. And inside that cold wallet, nobody knew, but there was 4 other pieces. And it just seemed like a cool, fun thing to do. And and that piece got surprisingly bid. It was my highest sell at the time, 64. Yeah, and that was bought by Alex, the NFTX guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had that. I thought that was a fun experiment. And he ended up selling one of the NFTs from that cold wallet to Starry Night for 35 or 40, something like that. And anyway, so then the SuperRare Genesis, and then the very next day after SuperRare Genesis, I did Till Death Do Us Part.
Wow, and I didn't realize it was really the next day. That is wild.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it wasn't my intention, to be honest. I listed it for 200, hope like I didn't want to have a back-to-back sale because it's not really a common thing. But I listed it for 200 thinking it might sit for a month or two or maybe forever. But old DVD came in with the snipe like 5 minutes later and sniped it.
yeah, Snap sold for 200 ETH. You don't see that happen too much. The piece I want to touch on is like, what is the role of Manifold and your ability to change metadata of a piece in an ongoing fashion? So as we see the properties of this piece on OpenSea, we can pull down the drop-down menu. We can see now it's got 11 properties. This is, how you are continuing to edit and change the piece. I guess talk to us a little bit about that process and kind of where you got the ideas.
So I was coming off the biggest sell of my life and ecstatic, and I was sitting here like, what am I going to do now? And I just thought, you know what, just for aesthetic purposes, I thought, I want to see what just a table with a glass of wine and an empty vase looks like. So I made it, and then the idea kind of hit me. You know what? List this for sale as a continual work of art, and you'll continue to update it for the rest of your life. And then I got the idea for the title, "Till Death Do Us Part," so I listed it, and I was kind of reluctant, like, man, I don't want to like rain on my own parade, not rain on it, but I don't want to just outdo myself this quickly. But I doubt it's going to sell, so I listed it, and I didn't even share it. I did tweet it, but I wasn't expecting anybody to really do anything. And then Vince came in and bought it. But Manifold's role, like, they created it to where you can edit the NFTs as often as you want using Etherscan. So you'll go into Etherscan and you'll write new contract and you'll update the metadata. And there's also other ways you can do it, like with code. But now their studio, it simplifies everything. You just go in, click on the NFT, and click edit. So it's very simplified.
And that's the new release that I think just came out in the past week or so, at least for more publicly available. So that's going to be a game changer for those who aren't as familiar. We'll link it in our show notes, but Manifold is doing a lot of things to drive the space forward.
Definitely.
If I understand correct too, I mean, Richard's role in having a motivating factor to you on some of the evolution of pieces, like, does that come back to the double zombie piece? I wonder, where it was locked in and you couldn't edit it and they wanted it, it all kind of came full circle.
I bet that was one of his driving factors, because he said, he's like, dude, that double zombie really bugs me. So
and it locked like that. So it's like, now it's the perfect ability. Okay. That's cool.
It very well could be. Yeah.
This certainly isn't the last time that you've changed a piece or had an eternal. So you've got the Ethereal Rose
right
piece, which is another evolving piece. Is that also did Starry Night get that one, or is that BBD?
Starry Night, yeah. Starry Night got that one.
Are you worried about balancing all of these ever evolving pieces, or are you gonna limit yourself?
So the Rose is on its own. It does its own thing. Like, I don't ever have to touch it.
Oh,
so
that's right.
Yeah, that one is timeless, the Rose, and then one ends with me, which is Till Death. So yeah, like Till Death's one. It's really fun because when I'm just in a void, kind of, I'll just sit and work on it and just have fun and just create, and I can do anything. Like, it's essentially just a blank canvas for me to just do whatever I want. Like, I can have somebody playing piano. The limits are there is no limits really. But yeah, the Rose, it's already been coded, and it will just do its own thing forever and ever and ever. As long as there's a blockchain, it will just evolve.
Very cool. So two very different types of ever evolving pieces.
Yeah.
Very innovative.
But I do plan on limiting that. Like, I don't really want to make that a thing. Like, it was cool then, and like it's my life work, but I don't want to keep doing it because, I want to continue to innovate and push new boundaries.
Of course. Well, one metadata change that we have to quickly touch on, and then we'll move on to our last segment. So this piece, Girl with the Piano, It
Ah,
went on
yes.
auction here just a few weeks back. The piece sold, and then essentially rugged the piece, using
Yeah.
NFT Twitter sphere term. The piece changed. It would previously been a girl holding a red piano that was floating in the air, and now it's Pepe with a balloon. The title of the piece changed as well. Then you've got a tagline on the piece: "Sorry, my muse can't be bought or sold." Tell us just,
Yeah.
quick 30, 60 seconds about this piece.
So yeah, ever since I saw Banksy's shredding of the girl with the balloon, I knew if I ever get into Christie's, I have to do the digital equivalent of that. So I made Girl with the Piano, and I was hoping it would allude to Christie's, like, oh, is this guy gonna rug us? But they never, they just liked the art. So well, okay, they didn't guess, and no one really guessed, and I was also kind of not very happy with how they displayed my work. Like I went to Christie's and it was supposed to be on one of the bigger screens, and they put it on one of the smaller screens, and it was a little bit of a controversy, but things happen, so I didn't really hold it against them. But it also felt better to rug them after, because I felt a little bit disrespected by how they treated my art, because I put my muse in the piece, and I'm like, okay, they absolutely don't deserve to have my muse in a piece. And I was always going to rug them, but it just made it feel a little bit better.
I get the sense that you've got an edge about you, and it comes out in your work. But it's also it seems a bit like you might have a chip on your shoulder. Is that fair to say? I know a lot of driven people in the world do, and that's one of their primary drivers of success. So I'm curious to.
I mean, I like to lean on vengeance a little bit, I guess. I mean, I don't know who the chip is directed at, but like I'm very thankful and appreciative and humble, and like I try to be respectful. But yeah, I think it does play a little bit of a driving factor for me.
I loved it on your past interview that I had listened to. I just put the quotes on. I wrote it down. You just said, "I want to shake things up." At the end of the day, that is exactly what you've done. And I think it's in my head, it switched in a sense when Vince bought that "Till Death Do Us Apart" snap. And it was like, okay, Manifold and yourself, you've now changed what you can do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I want to innovating, like even with editions. When I think about, I know a lot of my ACK fam, they want another edition, but I'm thinking like, man, I want to do something new and different. I want to find a better way to make editions, because to me, editions can be a bit boring. So I want to continue pushing that and find new shit to do.
That's a great seg into kind of our final topic. We've got about 5 minutes left. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the future. So, what's next for ACK? Are there any plans, at least high level, that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I'm working. I mean, I have my next SuperRare planned for Valentine's Day. So yeah, I'm working. It's ready to go, but it needs to be done on Valentine's Day. I can't really say much more about it. But other than that, I have a few ideas. I'm working on a collection, like a big collection, maybe like a 999 type of a collection, and fairly priced, just to get more, just to let people get into the ACK fam and have some exposure. And also, but it's not PFP. Like I wouldn't be able to do a PFP project, because I'm just like, another. How many times can I see laser eyes on something? It just, gets a bit old to me. But I want to do something new and different, of course. And I have a really good idea. So I'm working that, and we're also working on a really cool airdrop for my holders. That's more of like a game, and you have to. I don't want to say much more, but it'll be very cool for my holders, and I think it'll be a lot of fun for the space, because it's never been done before. So that should be January, February.
Wow, that's intriguing. Well, we'll definitely be watching that. I will say, refreshing a little bit to hear, no go on the PFP. The rhetoric from a few months ago was, eventually the good artists are going to come in and do PFPs. It's going to blow the old PFPs out of the water. Well, now that this market is now flooded, we've got Xcopy, Coldy, a lot of money, and now Hackatow this week, right? Who are dropping their PFPs, and they're cool, but now it feels like we need a break from that a bit in the market. So will be very interesting.
I do love the grifters, of course, by the way. So grifters are great.
I'm a big
one
fan.
thing
It's my PFP as well.
I wanted to I guess I'll ask the question as we keep closing out here, but how do you do everything yourself? You know, it's you're the artist, you're creating, and you've had a few different style of drops of gas wars as things have picked up. You tried to do a raffle with some of the pre-ACK work that you had. You now say a collection of $9.99 to get more into the family. You know, I'll always remember you like burning some of the last Teslas and Galaxy runs because it was a lot of stress. You know, it's not what you do or what you enjoy about the space. So how does bringing more into the family work side by side with not having to deal with the stress of drops and worry about making everyone happy, because you never can?
Yeah. So my tentative plan would be to whitelist all of my, you know, with Manifold, they'll be able to whitelist per contract. So we can whitelist all of my current holders, like for the $9.99 drop. We'd be able to whitelist them, and I would let them buy for like a discount. And then public sell, it would just have to be it is what it is. Like gas, like I know there's a new way to write the code to where the gas isn't ridiculous. So I would definitely incorporate that, because it's important for me to not have people get burned.
Yep.
But yeah, as far as I've done both, and like you said, like people complaining, like it's so much for me. Like I just want to make cool art, and when the complaints start blowing up in my Discord and people getting so upset, like, you know, like with the Tesla coins and the Galaxy runs, I just like, you know what, screw it, I'm burning the rest, because, you know, the goal is to just make cool art and also to make people happy and have good investment opportunities.
Well, ACK, we really appreciate your time. Any closing comments or thoughts you want to share with our listeners? I feel like we've kind of rounded out the discussion.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's been great, and I've always appreciated every time y'all mentioned me on the show. And I should have some really interesting stuff coming out, you know, February, March, hopefully January. And I'll be on Twitter if anybody wants to hit me up.
Yeah, we'll definitely be here and following it and highlighting it on our show. So
thank you.
Look out for that. But all right, to our listeners, viewers, that's our show for today. What a show it was. ACK, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome.
We really appreciate it, man. This was
Alpha
a blast.
Centauri.
Thank you so much.
At Alpha Centauri Kid on Twitter. We'll also post his SuperRare OpenSea Foundation links in our show notes. Thanks to SkyHook, as always, for joining, to our viewers for tuning in. We'll be back with live shows in the new year. This will be our last show for 2021, so stay tuned for that. But till then, we wish everyone a happy new year and stay safe in those NFT streets. Goodbye.